And now for a ray of hope to show what women can do at the other end of the spectrum. It's now my honor to introduce to you Jody Williams, who is the 1997 Nobel Peace Laureate and the founding coordinator of the international campaign to ban landmines. She's also chair of a fabulous initiative, the Nobel Women's Initiative. And if you're not already following them online, please do. The newsletter is wonderful and inspiring. So from the voice of a 10-year-old girl who reminds us what we need to do as adults, to an inspiring woman who took it upon herself to make an enormous global change, Jody Williams, Nobel Peace Laureate.
Hello, thank you. I have 2 strikes against me before I even start. One is Bana. The second is I'm the last speaker. So I will try to be concise. I loved how she ended, saying if you feel compassion or anything about what's happening in any situation and you do nothing, that emotion is really irrelevant. The only thing that really matters is stepping up and taking action to bring about change. And many of you, most of you already know that. In comparison with most of the speakers, I have been an NGO peace activist for my adult life. Throughout the 1980s, I worked in El Salvador and Nicaragua, excuse me, trying to stop US military intervention in the civil conflicts in those countries. Unfortunately, we were not successful, but I learned a lot. At the end of that period, I really needed to do something else, and I didn't know what it was. And I was saved from myself in the process of trying to find a job when 2 non-governmental organizations asked me if I wanted to try to create a campaign to ban anti-personnel landmines. And I thought it was an interesting challenge. It was global, and I did not think we'd get a treaty very quickly, but I did think that we would be able to help landmine survivors and communities that were grossly mined if we did something. So I accepted, and we grew from 2 NGOs and a staff person of 1, moi, to 1,300 NGOs in 90 countries. And in the space of 5 years, we were able to get countries to do what they should have done anyway and ban anti-personnel landmines. It was a great, yeah, thank you. So many times today I have heard different women say, talking about the need for implementation, that laws on paper are irrelevant as well if they are not implemented. In the Landmine Campaign, we knew that. We knew that governments were hoping that at the end of the successful negotiation of the treaty, we would walk away and they would be left to do what they wanted, which would be minimal, if anything. Instead, the campaign, as the gavel came down on our successful negotiations, went to every single government delegation in the room and gave them our action plan for the next several years, to let them know that we would be on top of them and on top of the words of the treaty, which would only be beautiful words on paper if they did nothing. And I am proud to say, for the campaign which continues, that it is one of the most successful disarmament campaigns in the world. The treaty as well now has, if I'm correct, 164 nations that are part of it. And it is one of the most highly implemented treaties in the world. And the reason that this title is "The Peace is Not for Faint of Heart" is because of the example of the Landmine Campaign. As I said, implementation would have been weak or none had we not existed. But it would have been weak or none had we not continued to be an active campaign we now have been working for 20 some odd years on the issue of landmines. and on the issue of making a world in which people everywhere can walk without fear of stepping on a landmine. That is what the faint of heart. It's not enough to do a little, in my view, and in the view of the people who I've had the great privilege to work with on the Landmine Campaign. One has to carry it to conclusion, or it's sort of a useless effort. And so we have been very proud of the work and proud of the fact that we still have people coming into the campaign, young people who want to join and keep moving it forward. That is about perseverance, and it's about sometimes you get damn sick of being out there. You know, you get really sick of talking about war, disarmament. People, it's not an uplifting subject most of the time, although we hear the hope from young Ban, and that was pretty awesome. I'm going to end by inviting you to help me and other people who are part of the campaign to stop killer robots. This can be part of your pledges, perhaps. Killer robots are not drones. Let's just start out there. I think most people know that drones are semi-autonomous weapons that can fly for thousands of miles on their own. And then, when they get near something that might be a target, the pilot sitting home in the US in Creech Air Force Base tells the plane to go closer so they can really get a close look at the person or people. And if that pilot deems that that is a terrorist, an enemy, etc., he pushes the button and kills them with a Hellfire missile. I became horrified when I learned that the next step in the development of artificial intelligence and these weapon systems was removing the human completely from the process of targeting and killing. Now just think about this for a minute. Countries in the world are developing and producing weapons that on their own can target and kill human beings. I find it unethical, depraved, and immoral that any human beings can believe it is okay to delegate the decisions of life and death in combat to a machine. That machine then, in effect, becomes both combatant and weapon. And it's certainly easier to send those weapons into war than soldiers who might get killed and upset their families back home. We started a campaign to stop it. It was launched in London in April of 2013. There have been ongoing discussions at the UN in Geneva trying to get governments to recognize the need to keep a human being involved in every targeting and kill decision made by any weapon. So this is where I'm asking for your help. Parliamentarians, you have the power to influence your government to support this effort. Parliamentarians were hugely important in the Landmine Campaign. Many parliaments passed legislation to domestically ban landmines, and those provided the stepping stones to the treaty that banned them completely in the world. You can do the same thing with killer robots. I know Pakistan has been in the lead, one of the first countries in the world to call for a ban on killer robots, a preemptive ban, stopping them before they're out there. So please, I ask you parliamentarians, think about it, look into it, help. I'm available online. I always answer my own emails. So please, if you have questions, if you want to help, let me know. People in business and other people here can also help. There are many ways to participate in any campaign to stop war and also to disarm the weapons of war. You can talk to your congresspeople, you can talk to parliamentarians, whoever you know in positions of power, to ask them to seriously consider, do we want a world of weapons of war that can target and kill on their own? I hope all of you would say no. And I invite you, as I said, to help us make it not happen. I have hope, because we were able in 5 years to ban anti-personnel landmines. I know that when we work together, governments, businesses, NGOs like myself, we can change this world for the better. It is not enough in the Women, Peace, and Security framework to stop with cleaning up the mess after the fact. You know, we need women at the peacekeeping table, but we need women speaking up to stop war before it starts. We need women and men speaking up to take away the weapons of war, or we're just going to be cleaning up forever and ever and ever and ever. So you give me hope, because I hope you'll help. Thank you very much.